run for your area. But when you start it to stop, it don't go easy. I see they drag them go, they drag you down. What I come up for my eyes, oh, when I remember all the guys, oh, where many of them kicking bucket, oh, some cartoons forget, oh, make we don't forget, oh, don't talk it, oh, say, I got busy body, oh, I go push your busy body, if you die, it goes sad, oh.
We're live from the national headquarters of this great institution, the NDLA, located in Yahid district area of the Federal Capital. Of our highlights for the past week.
My name is Nata Wedozie, and here are the NDLEA news highlights for the week. First, it has been thwarted by operatives of, especially their balanced approach to drug supply reduction and drug demand reduction efforts are well appreciated. That's it on arrest and seizures. Next is the update on some of the wider activities across the country for the week, brought to you by my colleague, Peace.
Thank you, Netta. My name is Peace the Pastor, and here are some of the wider activities across the country for the week. The war against drug abuse, WADA social advocacy, is one of the strategic initiatives of the NDLEA for a comprehensive nationwide action to combat the scourge of substance abuse and illicit drug trafficking through sensitization and awareness campaigns. Officers of the NDLEA actively engage with communities, educational institutions, and local authorities to identify their roles and gather commitment to fighting the drug scourge. On Monday, 17th February 2025, the Kano State Command of NDLEA conducted WADA Enlightenment Lecture for students and staff of Government Girls Arabic Secondary School, FAGI, just as the Oyo State Command delivered WADA sensitization message to students and staff of MACPA. The Kogi State, the 18th February, held WADA sensitization lecture for students and staff of Ismailia Secondary School, ANPA, on the dangers inherent in drug use. On same Tuesday, the
Thank you very much, dear. Peace and Netta. Welcome back from the news highlights segment. Like I said, please let's remind ourselves that indeed some guest speaker, please note that solutions, contributions, and questions, please let's ensure that we remain muted until we start to call individuals so that we can enjoy the conversation and have a very smooth one today. Now, we're dealing with something that has to do with mental health and substance use dependence. And so we have a consultant psychiatrist, somebody who is well grounded, somebody who is well known and is in this field, and is no other person than Professor Jida Said, who is the head of Department of Mental Health, College of Mercy, University of Maiduguri. He's not just only that, it's not just about the academics, he's also a consultant psychiatrist at the Department of Psychiatry, University of Maiduguri. Please join me in welcoming Professor Jida Said as I invite him to unmute himself while we listen to him take the next 3 disorders in young adolescents and the challenge of substance use dependence. It's our pleasure to welcome you, Professor Jida. Please unmute yourself and let's enjoy the conversation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Femi, for inviting me to this very important platform to discuss this very important topic about OB. And this is very important, particularly for the demographic group we are actually interested in, that is the adolescents. So, unrecognized is a very important thing. And so we have to really put that in context. And now, the other issue in relation to the topic is the adolescence. Now, there are 3 series of adolescence. There's the early, there's the middle, and then there's the late. Generally, according to WHO, is the age between 10 to 19 or 20 years of age. And this particular group are very peculiar in that there are as their body is adjusting to the hormonal changes that occur as secondary sexual reproductive begins to manifest, as the babies begin to develop their breasts and have their first menstrual period, which we call the menarche, and also as the boys begins to have their voices break, increase of their muscle mass, and all of those peculiar changes, which they find confusing, perplexing, and difficult to understand, as well as in the social context where there's a confusion as to whether they are adults or whether they are children, whether they are responsible for themselves or they are actually dependent. So all of the confusions that are going on puts them in a peculiarly difficult position mentally, and predisposes them to development of mental disorders. Now, when you have a normal adolescence, that period is enough for the child, for the adolescence. Just going through it and navigating through it and getting successfully to adulthood, that in itself is problematic. Now, when you have such a person having some underlying mental health problems, while he's navigating through this crisis period, it becomes really, really much more difficult and much more relevant difficult to tame. And the difficulties in relationship with the parent, it becomes compounded when you have a lot of patience to be able to help navigate the child through that stage of the critical stage of development. Now, this problem is even the more relevant in the modern world, where the Western approach to life have actually permeated every society and every culture. Hitherto, the African culture, and indeed most indigenous cultures, traditional cultures, they tend to, that are not, not depositing. There's no confusion, status confusion, privilege confusion. All of this are actually mitigated. And once you pass through that right, you are moved to a few years later. You get married, you settle down, and culture. There is no clear demarcation. The child does not know whether he's an adult, whether he's a child. I mean, the adolescent is not aware, and that really is a recipe for development of all sorts of mental health problems. Once the biological clock begins to tick and the hormones begin to now produce for both the males and the females, they are ready for engagement in sexual relationship and procreation. But because of the demand that the post-industrial society places on the individual, you have to go through primary school, secondary school, post-secondary school, and be able to get a job before you are now able to form a family and now be able to engage in legitimate sexual relationship. Now, this particular scenario puts the child and the adolescent, I would say, in a state of constant tension for several years, which leads to a lot of experimentations that can be harmful. So, now if parents bear this in mind and see that the challenge on the adolescent is enormous, be more empathetic, be more engaged with the adolescent, and try to help the adolescent navigate through the kind of self-esteem that you require. And then he experiments. And once he experiments, he sees, yeah, it does really work. That is the beginning of a relationship with the drug. And this relationship continues until this relationship where he has now become dependent. Life revolves only around, and a state of physical damage that is irreversible has an individual adolescent wishes to become a successful adult and requires certain grades, pursuits, and he sees quite a number who would stay for hours and hours and hours on end reading, and he sees that he can stay for maybe half an hour and he feels sleepy and tired and has to retire for the night. And then he asks a simple innocent question: how are you able to manage this? And he tells him, just take this small stimulant, coffee. Usually starts with coffee. Takes coffee, and he sees, he's alert. And then after repeated taking of, increase the number of sachets, and then you get the result. He does that, he gets the result. At a point he doesn't, no matter how many. They say, just add a little bit of tramadol. If you add a little bit of tramadol mixed with that coffee, your staying power, your reading power will increase, and you'll stay for hours without blinking an eye, and you're able to cover a book from cover to cover. And then he applies that, and it does work for a time, and then he stops, and then before you know it, no, you have to take injections. That is how it begins, with some innocuous, steps that now leads to cross dependence and the damaging of the life of the adolescents. So now, which takes us now to the issue of what should a parent do? Substance abuse. at the earliest stage, because once a patient is at the earliest stage, the damage has not been done. Quite a large number of adolescents actually experiment with drugs when they don't get to the stage of dependence, either because the parents are able to find out, nip it in the bud, or because of some changes in the social cycle or some other accidents that happens, and they're able to make or herself off the drugs and move on. So it's a initial stage, usually incentive system which makes us to come back to repeat an action because we've enjoyed it in the past. We learn to take sugary things because there's a memory in our brain that makes us remember when we see sugary things that, oh, okay, there's an enjoyment related to this, and then you want to re-experience it, and then you pick it and you use. Now, that center, actually there's a control to that center. That center that makes you remember enjoyable things and wants you to, and pushes you to try to experience it. There is a control center that controls that area and makes you to postpone the desire to experience that enjoyment. For example, somebody who have diabetes is also told him you can't eat sugar. He loves sugar. So when he sees sugary things, he wants to pick and eat, because that area, that instinctive area, is reminding enjoyment of sugar. He wants to take the sugar. Neither is it in the hands of the parent. It is now a matter of fate. What fate has in store. Commonly, when somebody gets to that state of dependence, there is actually the child can never be able to achieve his or her potential. His always the potential. And sometimes it can be even so damaging to the parents that they could be excessive use and death. Just like we know in the United States, about 60,000 people die every year from overdose. Not from the secondary effect or the other primary effect of the drug, but just overdose. 60,000 soldiers lost. More than the amount of soldiers that are lost in the Second World War, they had to be engaged in. So, the parent has to terms of sleeping pattern, in terms of the coloration of the eye of the child. It's not just about the kind of friends the child feels that the child has changed his friends from those who abuse substance to those from those who do not abuse substance, who are taking those and those to those who abuse. No. There are some subtle changes that the child represents with. That if you engage with the child on a daily basis, you are able to detect very early. Those are the stage of experimentation before the child becomes dependent on that substance. Something as trivial as the change in the child's appetite. The child that usually you tell the child you have to eat all your food. You've not eaten your food. The child eats only half a plate of food. Then suddenly you hear the apple, you see the appetite of the child becomes ravenous. The child eats his own, take his brother, take his sister, and consume all of it. Once you begin to see that, those kind of changes, you have to bring the child and try to find out. And if you are not convinced, quickly go to urine drug analysis. Take the urine sample of the child. Once you see any changes in the behavior of the child, just go to any private lab or a government lab. Stand there, make sure he produces real urine, because some of these adolescents can be very crafty. Instead of producing urine, they just you go into the toilet, bring you tap water and hand it over to you, and everything will be negative. Say, wow, oh, my son is good. Make sure you ensure he produces or she produces the urine and get it tested. Now, engaging with the child may just require, when the child comes back from school, find out school today. Did you enjoy school? Or did you not enjoy school? I didn't enjoy school. Why did you not enjoy school? Oh, I was punished. Why were you punished? I was punished because I was making noise. Because they said I was making noise. You know? I enjoyed school too. Why did you enjoy school? Because I did not make noise today. Because today I won a prize. I answered a question. These kind of small discussions that you have with a child, every blessed day the child goes to school and comes back, it's very relevant, because once the child begins to take the wrong turn, immediately he takes the first two tentative steps, and that road, you will reject and bring him back before he gets to the point of so these are very important. I think if we do that, we will be able to get the adolescents and our future leaders in a good state, because it is said that it is the brain that transforms the horizon. The dinosaurs have been here for millions of years, and the earth has remained the way it was. The mountain keeps staying as a mountain, and the trees keep staying as trees. But once God introduced man into the environment, the environment begins to change. The highlands cannot be leveled. The trees are no longer trees, they are now furniture and stuff. So it is the brain that actually is the brain. At times where society will be a first nation or a third nation or a failed nation. So it's the substance abuse plays determine the outcome of the brains of our people leaders cannot be devastated. It cannot be devastated. This will be a mass disruption of brains of adversaries have actually been used as a tool of war. Is a major historical confrontation between Chinese and the Western Europeans, Western powers. the Chinese population and ensure that it is. And it seems that this is a payback time. We are producing volumes of services and dumping in Western and promoting becomes a nation, it affects the nation. So this is a very important thing to look at, and I'm happy with what the and we hope it will continue to bear fruit going forward. So it's not enough for parents to sit and wait for the NDLA to do it all. We as parents, we need to really sit up and pay attention. I know we are busy, but we have to be busy for these children. We have to be in constant touch with these children. We have to be following them every step of the way. Internet access has to be restricted.
can stop it, I can let it all.
I can't stop it, oh, I can't stop it, oh, I can't leave it, oh, I can't leave it, oh, what a shot in my life, I can't stop it, oh, if I sit down, they do nothing, I can't leave it, oh, I don't go back until they want me, I don't go back until they buy me, I cannot put I make the drugs surround me, even do something that's stuck in a man, I gotta open eye like I'm stealing it, I go stand up, I go look for professional help. I can't stop it,
I am tired already. My head is born and I don't get it. I don't want gutter water, I don't fight it. Colorado, Arizona, I can't leave it. As you see me so, some I don't load in my pocket. It's killing me so, and I don't want to in your life. Fight it, no, they sit down, they do nothing. I cannot open eye, make it dark, so wound me. Even though something must to kill a man. I cannot open eye, make drugs kill me. I go stand up and go look for professional help.
Drugs, they make you so much if you don't know. Send it to rest not from my dog. Drugs, they make you so much if you don't know. The brother man used to tell a brother, wanna hard drugs, can kill a brother. Save your soul, wanna malifet, but if you wound you, he got malifet. I know that I'm tempted to light it, but I believe I can fight it. You never see more about rehab. I'm going there not just to please her, but to heal me and to help me. Trauma, COVID, birth, I believe I can stop it for life.
I know I'm going to till he wants me. I know I'm going to till he buy me. I cannot put eye like a drop soon to me. Even though something must kill a man. I cannot put eye like a feel me. I go stand up and go look for professional help.
Him. And I really wish we had more people joining today. And I do hope that Mr. Femi will make it a point of duty to invite Prof regularly. There's always something to learn, honestly. And I hope those that listen to him today will agree with me that there's no how you are going to have this kind of interaction with Prof without going home with something worthwhile. Thank you very much for coming, Prof, and we hope to see you more often. Thank you.
All right. Take this one from Akinwumi. Akinwumi writes glowingly about Professor Gida's presentation, and then ask Prof mentioned some groups of adolescents. I would like to ask from Prof if indeed there are specific groups of adolescents that are more vulnerable to this recognized psychiatric conditions, or is it a general thing to all groups of adolescents? All right, thank you very much, Akin. We meet there. Prof, we can move and respond to that before we take the next one.
Thank you, Femi, for giving me this opportunity again. First, I have to comment on Dr. Abdullah's comment. His comment is really humbling. I didn't know I was highly regarded by him so much, and becoming psychologically, affected. So there are for those adolescents that have some that genetic predisposition, and then you add the social environment in which they are being brought up, where the parental engagement is not up to the level we would want. And then you have the social environment within which is being brought up. Once all of these things add up, they can lead to the problem we are talking about. So so to answer your question, the adolescence, passing through adolescence itself is fraught with the tendency not to recognize their mental disorders, because their mental disorders come in a different way. Before you get to that level where the patient, the adolescent appears fully depressed or fully manic or fully psychotic, there are different stages you go through before you see that adult manifestation. And once you nip it early, you are able to solve the problem head on. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much there. Prof, I believe that should answer the question. That's Wumi's question. Let's take this one from quickly from Rekia. Rekia, again, appreciate Professor Jida's presentation, and Rekia is asking, saying you tasked parents on the need to pay attention to their kids, but we know that most parents in modern time, especially those in the cities, pay more attention to their economic advancement and well-being than taking care of any kids or paying attention to their upbringing. How would Prof suggest that parents balance the situation in a way that they won't have to lose or miss their economic targets, while they also take good care of their kids in a way that they would not derail? That's from Rekia. All right, Prof, you have that from Rekia there.
Okay, thank you again, Tony, for this. Okay, thank you for your question. The whole, I think, it can be, I don't like putting things into reductionist arguments, but I think the whole matter here can be reduced to the issue of what is life about? What is the meaning of life? Why do you exist? The Western hedonistic approach, which we have become a part of, sees life as a geared towards the pursuit of happiness. And happiness is equated to enjoyment. If you consider life as pursuit of happiness, then you run into the kind of troubles that some of our parents go through, which leads to the destruction of their children. Life cannot be the pursuit of happiness, because happiness is actually a mirage. It's not something you can achieve. It's something that comes in a fleet, as a fleeting, momentary experience, and goes away. In fact, it is abnormal for you to experience happiness in a sustained manner. Because that is what happens to people who have mania. People who have bipolar disorder and who stay in the state of hypomania and mania. There are people that are in a constant state of happiness. That is abnormal. So life cannot be, and because of that, life cannot be about the pursuit of happiness. Life, if you consider it, should be about the pursuit of meaning. Pursuit of meaning, when you make life a pursuit of meaning, then you are able to actually navigate the intricacies of modern life. And you are able to make sense of the confusion, the state of thrownness that we have all come to find ourselves. We just come to existence without anybody asking us whether we want to exist or not. We just find ourselves. So that is what existential philosophers call a state of thrownness. We just find ourselves being, and it can be confusing. And so, but once you make life about the pursuit of meaning, then everything comes into sharp focus. Only the important things are given priority, and things that are not important are consigned to their own particular position of relative irrelevance. But if you make it about the pursuit of happiness, consumption, and acquisition of the happiness through consumption, then you run into trouble. Very important things are consigned to the background, and you are in pursuit of a mirage. You get that job, but within that job you discover you are stressed up in the job. You look for another higher thing that you think will give you that happiness. You chase it, and you see within that thing that ostensibly should give you happiness, you find a lot of pain, anguish, and suffering in it. And so you keep chasing and chasing, and that's why you discover somebody has millions and millions of dollars, very famous person, that should be happy, But if pursuit of happiness is the thing, when you hear the person has committed suicide, so now this is all sounding abstract. So let me come down to real life and make this point, which we use in psychotherapy sessions. The thing is that every individual is defined by many things. He is a father, he is a son, he is a sibling, he is a wife, a husband, he is a colleague, and so on. And there is a relationship he shares with the parents, and there is a response he gets from the parents in terms of appreciation of the relatedness, and there is a value he places on that feedback that adds one meaning to your life. There is a relationship with a child. There is a response, there is a feedback that is given by the child, appreciating that relationship. And there's a value you place on that adds one value, another value. Each one adds one value, each one adds one value, each one adds value. All of them add up and give meaning to your life. Now, when you consider this, what that means is that this relationship you enjoy with each of these persons that come to define who you are. You are conscious of that relationship, and you are creating memories of that relationship, and you are actually storing that memory. Like this gives you a level of resilience to the extent that if there's a problem with a spouse, for example, you don't see that the problem has come to an end because it's only one thing that defines you that has a problem, one area that defines you that has a problem. to give you that resilience to be able to now use the resources in relation to all the other relationships that is going on. Fine. To be able to actually have the moral stamina, psychological stamina to be able to resolve this problem in this house, rather than lashing out, flashing, and making things more difficult and irreversible. So once you take this life as about the pursuit of meaning, your priorities are going to be well placed. For example, you are at work, or you need to write a report. But in between, you have something in your phone that reminds you that your child has come back from school, and you need to ask about school, and you need to ask questions about what went on. You break what you are doing, and you engage with the child, and ask about school. If there's a video feed, you do video calls, and you have a discussion, and you're able to achieve something. And you put that thing that is most significant on the scale. Maybe the significance it is that you place it in the scale. But if it is about pursuit of happiness, you're going to be chasing shadows, and as you know, you can never catch a shadow, you know. So this is, I think, what I think maybe the answer to this question. I don't know if it was quite a little bit, but I hope I've been able to explain in a way that is relevant. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, dear Prof. I believe Rekia should be satisfied enough with that. Before we take the next question, let's quickly appreciate all of those joining us via our Facebook and our YouTube handles. Thank you very much for being there. Unfortunately, we can only call the names of those who are live with us on the hosting platform that's on X here. So in that regard, I'd like to appreciate Professor Rosemary Ogu. Professor Rosemary Ogu is the National President of the Medical Women's Association of Nigeria. She is indeed a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist. Thank you very much, Professor Rosemary Ogu, another senior member of this platform, very consistent and supportive. Thank you, Professor Rosemary. We also have SOA. Again, thank you, Solas, for being part of the conversation today. Usama Ibrahim, thank you for being here. King Ghazali Habu, thank you for being here. Double MG and Okosisi, thank you all for being here. If time permits, we'll still recognize some more people later. But then let's take the next question from Jude. Jude, so thank you, Professor Jida, for your presentation. Indeed, quite a lot of insights and points to take home there. I would like to ask just this complicated question, and I'll be glad if you can be very straight with us here on this. We do know that children brought up by religious parents are more often disciplined for obvious reasons. But then there are situations where we have some of these kids go out of line and are even worse than those on the streets. What could have been responsible? I ask because I have seen a situation where an affected family took it to be a spiritual attack on their family that requires spiritual solution rather than a medical treatment. I'll need the Prof to give us some professional insight into this. Are this really spiritual or indeed medical that could also be fought or sorted out through medical treatment? All right, thank you, Jude. We invite Professor Jida now to unmute and respond to this. Please go ahead, Prof.
Okay, thank you, Femi. Okay, Jude, thank you for the question. This is a very relevant question, and This is usually one of the first questions I get from my medical students in our first lectures. Usually they ask this question. The question is about spirituality in relation to psychiatry. And the answer I usually give is this. Science is not really interested in who created the saliva, the digestive juices, and all of that. Science is interested in how does it work? How is it created? So psychiatry is not interested in who brought the symptoms that you are observing. Is it genes? Is it substance? Is it no? It is not that relevant for us. The thing is, if somebody has poor appetite, low energy, lack of interest, sad mood, we call that group of symptoms depression. And we have a drug that we use, and we have psychotherapy that we use. Whether it is demons that are responsible or genies that are responsible or some psychosocial stressors is not too relevant to a certain degree. So we are not in the business of saying something is due to demons or genies. We are in the business of identifying constellation of symptoms and giving them a diagnosis and using the right kind of evidence-based approach in which experiments have been done and this kind of intervention has worked. Like for example, Q exposure and response prevention technique is something that has been used and we use in my department for the management of craving due to substance use, where you gradually expose the person to the drug while he's in the hospital. You first allow him to imagine him taking the drug, and he gets anxious and he gets excited and he gets to crave for the drug, and then you teach him technique to control the urge. And then next you show him a picture, and then next you bring the actual drug, next you make him handle it, and so on and so forth. And each stage you assist him to deal with the urge, the anxiety related to the urge. And we achieve some results. We achieve some results with that. Now we are not asking questions whether it is some malevolent acts by some demons or by some witches, or no. This person is abusing a stimulant A, and because he's abusing stimulant A, he has reached the point of dependence based on symptoms A, B, C, D, E that he has manifested. And so he is dependent or addicted to substance A. Now you bring him in and you use the approach that several experimentations have shown to work, and you apply it. So for us, it's not relevant. And then the other point I usually also make is that we have a certification process in medicine. You go through a program and you are certified to be an expert in that particular area. Those who say somebody has demons do not go through any certification. Nobody amongst them usually goes through a school for demon detection, who understudy under an expert in demonology, and they learn to detect demons and they are certified to be experts in the detection of demons with certificate. And so any individual who ambles along and comes and decide to say he is a detector of demons, depending on how serious he looks and how much the part he looks, everybody says, yeah, since such a person say such an affliction is due to demons, then it is so. So this is not science, this is not evidence. But if there is a school for detecting demons and they have a certification process, now it will be easy for psychiatry to collaborate with such entities and individuals. But there is none. Only Tom, Dick, and Harry can decide that, oh, this one is due to genes, this one is due to demons, this is due to... So it doesn't make really sense for us to really work with. And so we now stay in our own lane. We use our good old time-tested approach. Somebody has symptoms A, B, C, D. It is called disorder so-so, and then we use drug or psychotherapy so-so to manage it, and we stay in our lane. So I hope I've answered the question to the best of what you require. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. I do hope so. I do hope Jude will be satisfied with that. Quite as we are talking, more questions are pouring in. I have seen one pair, but one pair, hold on before I come to you. Let's quickly take this, and that is, this is coming from Oni. Oni is asking, talking about evidence-based interventions. I would like to know from Professor Jida what treatment approaches are most effective for adolescents with both psychiatric disorders and substance dependence. Okay, Prof, over to you.
Okay, thank you for the question. There's the issue of the chicken and egg scenario, but is it the substance abuse that brought the mental illness, or is it the mental illness that the adolescent is trying to cope with, and they decide to now use drugs to cope with the problem? But whatever it is, where the two coexist, your first priority is to see which is exacerbating the other and handle it. If the patient is lacking motivation to go into substance, some addiction program because he's depressed, then you have to first treat the depression, and then once he's motivated now, you can now start doing motivational interview to be motivated enough to go through treatment. But however, if the individual comes to you intoxicated, is in a state of intoxication, that is, there's a toxicity, we are taking the drug to a certain level that is too dangerous for life. And then he also has maybe psychosis. Of course, you not want to attend to the psychosis, you have to make the person alive first. So you have to do some medical intervention to get him to a state of stability, and then you now handle the psychosis. And once the psychosis has abated, now you can now come back to start managing the addiction itself. So it depends on how the individual presents. So like the one who has psychosis and has intoxication and is dependent. So you use three different approaches to try to solve the problem. So there is no one size fits all approach. It has to be individually tailored. But whatever approach you use, there has to be evidence that it works. And usually that is what we use. And I'm sure that is what the NDLA also uses. Those approaches that have been shown again and again to work. So that there will not be waste of time and resources in regards to what is being done for the patient. Yeah. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
All right, thank you there. I believe, Oni, that Professor Jida's response takes care of your question. Okay, let's come to One Pen. That's Ahmad. One Pen, please go ahead and make your intervention or question. That's One Pen at Ahmad. Okay, if you are not ready, if you are struggling with your network, let me take this one from Bashir. Bashir, thank you, Prof, for your explanations. But I got curious when you talked about spirituality there. I'd like some clarification. Are you saying that spirituality is not relevant to the treatment of mental health and drug addiction challenges? Because some experts in your field had also been on this platform in the past expressing belief in sin. Why the difference? Or is it that I didn't get you quite well? All right, Prof, that's up to you now. Please, you can mute yourself.
Okay. Okay, the issue of spirituality is important, of course. If you observe my earlier discussion, when I think it's right here that asked the question, the issue of pursuit of meaning has undertones of spirituality in them. The use of spirituality as a component, as an integral component of management of patients is important, because the psychological makeup of the individual is not just psycho per se, but also spirituality. The individual is a spiritual being, not just a psychological being, and so you have to take care of that. The issue of meaning, the issue of worship of an entity, these are all spiritual issues, and these are needs that a human being inherently have that has to be addressed. So that is the extent to which I speak about spirituality. But now, in relation to what I spoke to the competence of a psychiatrist is actually not trained to detect and determine whether an affliction is demon, and then give intervention for the exorcising of demons. This is not under our purview, really. What we do is we count symptoms, constellations, and then we put them in a category, and on the basis of the categories that we put them, we will now be able to determine what has worked, and then we apply that. So spirituality is important. But my problem with spirituality, like I mentioned, those who claim to have insights, is that there is no certification process. Because if any person say, "Oh, I'm a malam and I see genes," how do you know? Who trained him? Who certified him? because lots of them are charlatans actually. They just claim so because there are some gains that you can get from that without actually making contributions, without actually having the proficiency. Of course, there are people who are proficient, are likely to be proficient, but how do you know who is who? Now, once that particular group are able to get their house in order, like I mentioned earlier, and are able to say, okay, this is the certification process, this is the person who certified, and this is the certification that somebody receives, then we can now be able to collaborate, like I mentioned earlier. There has to be a collaboration between material psychology, okay, and spiritual psychology, which is what you are alluding to. And so there is no, I think there is no contradiction there. Yes, the individual is a spiritual being, and that component has to be taken care of. But we in psychiatry do not do much of that. I developed one form of psychotherapy, the Meduguri Monofit existential counseling, which has a lot of issues for our people who are monotheistic Christians and Muslims. That psychotherapy approach. There's a bit of spirituality in it to the extent that material psychology can be able to handle. But the spiritual aspect is something we don't have training on. But those who have training in them, we don't know who is who. So that is the problem. But there is a room for collaboration, I agree. So I hope that answers the question.
All right, I hope so too. Professor Jida, thank you very much for that response. Okay, let's thank you, Victoria Uchechi, for being part of the conversation today. And again, Dr. Shitu Hawa, thank you, Dr. Shitu Hawa, for being part of this conversation. Let's take the next. Okay, one pen, are you ready now, Ahmad? Before I read the next.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, am I audible enough? Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead. We can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much. First and foremost, let me extend my heartfelt thank you to Mr. Ofemi for the opportunity to always share my thoughts and experiences on this critical issue. I'd also like to appreciate the insightful contributions of from other speakers, Dr. Abdullah and Co. And give special kudos to our guest speaker for the wonderful presentation. You know, as usual, mine personally is actually to always speak from the point that I know better, from the perspective that I understand better, a perspective of personal life experience. You know, I mean, as someone who has personally struggled with substance dependence, I must say that I find the presentation by a doctor very, very informative and relatable. And as we continue to expand the conversation when it comes to drug abuse, substance dependence, trafficking, it's important. I personally understand firsthand the devastating consequences on individuals, on ourselves, the individuals, the users, the families, and of course the communities. You know, and when the doctor was making presentation, you know, I recall I had a flashback growing up as a teenager myself, and as someone who actually started at the age of at 16. You know, I had a flashback. I remember how I struggled with anxiety and depression, you know, which I didn't even know how to express or manage. It was this vulnerability that led me to experimenting substance, you know. And my experience is not unique. This is what is relatable to virtually all users, all adolescent users, you know. And aside my own personal experience, being the founder of Niger State Recovery Network, which is an anonymous support group, I have seen firsthand the impact of unrecognized psychiatric disorders on young folks. You know, many are struggling with trauma, or others attention deficit, or ADHD, what is called ADHD. So this conversation is timely, and came at the right time. I was on a podcast yesterday. I was invited on a podcast yesterday, and I gave my. Of course, there's always constant clashing of thugs and Mina between this community and this community. There's always this constant. And when I was invited, I gave my own input. And I said, well, we all must come together. We don't. There are certain realities that we don't want to accept, especially down here in the north. Maybe because of our religious nature, our culture of silence, and everything. For some of us who came out publicly to speak and seek help and say, hey man, this is what I'm struggling with. I understand. I knew how difficult it was to manage the stigma and whatever. So, what do we do? What can we do as a people? It's important that we increase awareness and education. It's important we improve access to mental health services. Let's add our voices to issue of stigma. Stigma is doing so much damage, and please, our celebrities are not also helping matters. They are glorifying this whole substance abuse in their music videos, in their movies, and whatever. They are glorifying this. It's not helping the issues. We also need to encourage past users to come forth with their stories. When people who have experienced these life stories speak, users tends to listen. Someone when I was coming back from the podcast, I was talking with someone and I shared the clip with him, and immediately he was together with someone. The person was like, you actually did this. I said, yes, I really would love to also share my own experience, my own story too. So you see, he was actually very, very motivated. So we need to encourage past users to come forward with their stories, to stop shying away from their stories. I understand how difficult the stigma can be and how it could be, but we need to add our voices as a people, as a community. Thank you very much, Mr. Femi, for the opportunity. God bless you for all you do. Thank you, and God bless you.
All right. Thank you very much, dear One Pen, for always giving some personal experiences to buttress your points there. Thank you for coming around again today. Okay, our time is running so fast. Let's take, we'll have more questions dropping in, but I hope if we're able to take 2 or 3 more, that would be awesome. Okay, let's take this one from Juan. Juan, okay. Where is that? Okay. I appreciate all those that have spoken, especially the guest speaker. And I wouldn't know if I have missed this point, but there is something I'm curious about because of the experience of a family friend. I'd like to ask, perhaps if this had been talked about before, I would appreciate if our guest speaker can give a brief insight just for my takeaway. And that is it possible for substance use to mask or mimic symptoms of psychiatric disorder? Is it possible to mix them up? I'd like to appreciate this. This is for a personal intake. Okay, thank you there. All right, Prof. I believe you got the question. Yes, Prof, you are muted.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. The question, if I heard right, is the issue of substance abuse, masking, psychiatry disorder. Is that the question?
Yes, you got it, Prof. That's the question.
Okay. So, earlier when I was speaking, I was talking about the phenomenon we call the chicken and egg phenomenon. Whether it is substance abuse that comes first, or it is the mental disorder that comes first. In which I mentioned that there are some conditions that would arise there because of the sense of perplexity, the sense of emptiness would make him see something. It will make that person see something to fill in the void. And so, the problem that started with depression, the mental disorder, can now develop into substance abuse. There is a logical explanation, the logical finding that tries to put this particular issue in perspective. That tries to put this in perspective, which the medical study consistently have shown that the male to female ratio in terms of depression is 2 to 1. That is, for every male there are 2 females that have depression. So he did an experiment and came to the conclusion that no, depression is not any more common in females than males. It's just that females tend to externalize their symptoms and they express their symptoms and they are counted among the best people. Whereas males internalize their symptoms, they don't express their symptoms. And so when we come to count men that have depression, we miss out these particular males. So what happens to this person is that instead of externalizing their symptoms and getting support that they require, they internalize it and rather now use substance to cope with the problem that is eating them inside. And so they now develop substance abuse and they are counted amongst people with substance use disorder. So this is just to put this particular issue in its proper place. That yes, one can lead to the other, and one in the process can mask the other. Yeah. So that is absolutely I hope that answers the question. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Prof. We just have one more question for you before we know how difficult and challenging it can be to squeeze the whole 2 hours out of a very busy prof like you. But then we'll just manage to squeeze in one more question before we'll round it up today. And that question is coming from Abubakar. Abubakar is expressing appreciation for all the contributions and saying quite a lot to learn from this conversation, especially the presentation and responses from our guest speaker, Professor Jida. My question is similar to the last question asked, which he just responded to, but then I think there is a little bit of difference, which I will seek some clarification and further explanation if possible. How do symptoms of psychiatric disorders differ in young adolescents compared to adults? I will also, that is, how do symptoms of psychiatric disorders differ in young adolescents compared to adults? Are there differences? I would also like to ask, how can parents differentiate between normal teenage behavior and signs of a psychiatric disorder? All right, thank you very much, dear Abubakar. All right, Prof. I think it's a 2-in-1 question from Abubakar there. If you have some minutes in a settled place, we can sort that out quickly and then we'll wrap up the conversation. Yeah, Prof, you are muted now. Prof, can you hear me? Is Professor Jida there? I do hope he's not having a network issue there. Okay, if perhaps Prof will not be able to take. Let me tap into Professor Dr. Abdullah. Dr. Abdullah, are you there?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Can I have the question?
Okay, let me read the question from Abubakar to you. The first one is, how do symptoms of psychiatric disorders differ in young adolescents compared to adults? And the second leg of that is, how can parents differentiate between normal teenage behavior and signs of a psychiatric disorder? That is normal teenage youthful exuberance and what have you, and signs of a psychiatric disorder. Thank you, Dr. Abdullah.
All right. Thank you very much. There are quite a number of Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, can you?
Yeah, we can hear you, Dr. Abdullah.
Oh, okay. So there are quite a number of differences when you look at the signs and symptoms of mental illness, either in children and adolescents, and then in adult. For example, when Prof was speaking, you realize that sometimes, for example, as an adult, if an adult, for example, is having depression, for example, he may exhibit undue sadness, loss of interest in the things that used to give pleasure, a feeling of easy tiredness that we call fatigability. Of course, for children and adolescents, you may actually see that same problem manifesting as irritability. The child may throw, or the adolescent may throw tantrum, easily get irritated, may pick fights here and there, school refusal and stuff like that. Or they may actually engage in risky behavior, either physical or risky sexual behavior. So you can have these kind of differences in the way mental health issues manifest children and adolescents, and then in adult. There are quite a number of them. Then the second question is speaking about what? Please kindly refresh my mind. Hello? Hello? Yes, I said the second part of the question is asking how parents can identify these problems in adolescents, isn't it?
Yeah, how can parents differentiate between normal teenage behavior, that is youthful exuberance, and signs of a psychiatric disorder?
Okay. If you look at, for example, a normal adolescent, we know that of course they like to explore. You know, they like to be like their peers. They like to appear good. You know, these are just normal adolescent behavior. You know, that is around the time they are beginning to develop their self-identity. So they may have this kind of some deviant, defiant, not deviant, defiant behavior. The person wants to actually exert his or her own, having a mind of his own or her own. So the person may argue little, may try to disagree with certain things and stuff like this. Are just normal. The individual may begin to spend more time with his or her peers rather than the way they used to be, to spend time with family at home. These are normal adolescent behaviors. But of course, if there are problems, you will begin to see very marked differences. Some of these adolescent behaviors may be taken to the extreme. A child may either get withdrawn, completely withdrawn, from the family. It's not like the child is going out anywhere. It's somebody that used to, eat together with the entire family at the dining table may now begin to isolate, himself. Someone that used to spend so much time with the sibling may begin to isolate himself, or may begin to spend more time with himself rather than the family. Prof mentioned certain subtle signs you can see if substance use is involved. Even by mere change of the eye of the color, change in appetite, change in sleep pattern, all these things can be pointers to the fact that something, is going on. You see, I have seen a young child, and the only thing the mother noticed that brought this child to our facility was she just noticed all of a sudden, he just took a liking to Tom Tom. She was asking, what is this newfound love for Tom Tom? He wasn't given, answers that were convincing. So she suspected that maybe he is using it to mask something. And that was actually true. Each time he smoked, he tried to take this tom-tom so that they wouldn't perceive the. So that was how we were able to intervene at that very earliest stage. So sometimes you can actually look out for some of these very subtle signs that ordinarily people would think it doesn't matter. A change in appetite, this someone that, all of a sudden he's beginning to eat so much, or he's beginning to eat so little. Weight change, he no longer sleep the way he used to do. You can actually see changes in the color of the eye. Sometimes if you are, you may even see change in color on the lips. He begin to jettison things he used to like, doing. He no longer enjoy the activities he used to enjoy previously. Activities the entire family used to engage in, maybe weekend out or whatever, he no longer enjoy doing them. He's just doing other things all by himself. He begin to kind of keep certain things. You can actually see that this individual is like there are a lot of things he is not letting out. He is unlike, himself. Like previously, he will actually discuss this thing, but now he's like very secretive and stuff like that. So these are things you can actually look out that will tell you that no, something is wrong. And if you are able to engage the child, sometimes properly, you may be able to actually get answers to some of these questions. But of course, that depends on the kind of relationship you've had with that child over the years. If you are someone that has been, been very engaging with the child, you've made it very easy for the child to confide in it, to be easier. But if that relationship had not been there, you may need a professional to help you decipher if these problems are there. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah. I would like to appreciate indeed. There are two more questions I would have loved, but then time is against us, and I believe your response must have also taken care of some of these question. Part of this question. That's the question from AGN and Victoria Ochechi. We hope I'll try to bring this up next week. Please, apologies, AGN and Victoria Ochechi. We would like to appreciate everyone that has joined us on this conversation today. Those who joined via Facebook and those who joined via YouTube channel. Thank you very much for being part of this conversation today. We'd like to especially thank our guest speaker, Professor Jida Said, who is the head of the Department of Mental Health, College of Medicine, University of Maiduguri. He's also a consultant psychiatrist at the Department of Psychiatry, University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, Maiduguri, Borno State. We'd like to also especially thank our constant support, and that is Dr. Abdullah. Dr. Abdullah is a consultant psychiatrist at the Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital, Zaria. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah, for always being on hand to provide support on this space, on this show. All right, from this end, let me thank my colleague here. That's Rita, Shidi, Musa, Francis, Dele, Mahmoud, Sini, Philemon, Kumbi, Victor, and Blessing, and others. I recognize all of you. Thank you for being part of the effort today, especially my two OAPs, that's Neta and Peace Duchess. All right, thank you everyone for all you've done. Like I often say, we know it's Friday. Please, let's stay cool and let's stay out of trouble, stay out of substance abuse, and let's keep our heads high. Next week will come your way again, same time on this platform with another interesting topic with another guest. Until then,
Today, now my answer. Do you